Hard to believe, but the high school football season is over. And we did have a state champion, which is great to have.
Yes.
I know you were down there at Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday calling the game.
Yeah, on the radio.
Intimately involved.
Intimately involved, and I commented to Caleb Hatch, who did play-by-play to Mike Culler, and I said it was the most exciting, boring game I've ever seen in my life.
I think that's a pretty good way to put it. You know, 0-0 after regulation, 0-0 after overtime. I think the average fan would say it was boring, but really, you never knew when somebody was going to break a play, so you were kind of like on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, you were on the edge, and both teams had the capability of breaking one at any time. So, yeah, you definitely paid attention, and teams were able to drive in between the 20s, weren't able to finish drives, and eventually by the fourth overtime, T.J. Tippmann gets it done for a state title.
What was your call on the T.J. Tippmann touchdown run?
You know, that was Caleb Hatch doing the play-by-play. I just had the reactionary background, you know, screaming like a little girl. I was excited about it.
Holy guacamole!
Oh my gosh, they did it!
It was great, though. I mean, what a way to end a state championship game.
Yeah.
I mentioned on the broadcast on Friday that, you know, we saw the Snyder-Newpal game, which was whoever had the football last was going to win 64-61 back in 2015, and then just Concordia putting a whooping on, I believe it was Lawrenceburg the year after that.
Yep.
And I was like, those were two exciting games for different reasons, but a lot of offense. This was just as exciting, and it seems like we're almost spoiled when our teams go down there because these are the kind of outcomes that we get. Even Woodland last year, you know, the way, unfortunately, they came out on the short end of the stick, but, I mean, it was drama until the last minute.
Yeah, it was. It's a great point. We've had teams get down there the last several years that have been in tremendously competitive games, and Bishop Dwenger did it too. And on Friday, it was just amazing just how much ebb and flow there was to that football game. Bishop Dwenger was able to take away the run game for the most part, made the opponent really try to pass, and they were able to do it to a certain extent. Scored the touchdown in the overtime. Was it the third overtime for the touchdown?
Oh, the original.
The original, the first touchdown of the game, right? They were into in the third overtime, so it was great. And at the adversity that Bishop Dwenger had to go through that day with the charter bus breaking down on the way to Indianapolis, and we were going to go through a walkthrough at Ritter. They weren't able to do that, so even overcoming what they did on game day was very impressive.
When you take a look at the rushing, you mentioned stopping the rushing game. 41 attempts for Evansville Central, only 91 yards, 2.2 yards a carry. I know some of those came in overtime where you have a shortened field, so that does, you know, decrease, you know, the average gain, but really bottled them up in terms of rushing. We talked about the Schutte kid last week, how he was going to be a guy. They answered the call specifically when it came to stopping the run game.
They did, as they had most of the year. They were really able to take away that part of an offense each and every week, and Schutte really had no chance of getting loose. He had a couple like 8 or 9 yard runs, and it felt like it was a huge play.
Yeah, the longest run he had was 9 yards. That's impressive in its own right.
Yeah, absolutely. So what they were able to do, bottled it up, made Evansville Central one-dimensional. They really defended Malcolm DePriest Jr. phenomenally well in the pass game. Only broke through once with that wide open kind of pass back in the third overtime for a touchdown. Other than that, the defensive backs did a great job. They put Patrick Finley back there, more than they had since he had come back from injury, knowing that one play could have changed that game. So they had Finley really going both ways there late in that game. So really a lot of strategery going on as Dwenger wins that title.
I really dove into the stats this afternoon, and there are 3 numbers that really stuck out to me, and you'd say, how did Bishop Dwenger possibly win when I throw these stats at you? They were penalized 11 times for 120 yards. That is not good.
Not good.
They were 2 of 14 on third downs.
Not good.
And they allowed the other team to go 8 of 18 on third downs.
Yeah.
That's not great. And then they were sub 50% passing, 10 of 22 passing for 118 yards. Those numbers, I mean, you look at it and you say, man, how do they win the football game? But you mentioned whenever there was adversity, they faced it and overcame it.
And when you have a defense that was playing as well as it was on Friday, you're able to make some of those mistakes defensively and not being able to convert third downs. Penalties, how many procedure penalties do they have on Friday? It was several. They had the personal foul, ripping the helmet off. That wasn't it wasn't malicious. It was kind of just where the guy grabbed him and pulled the helmet off. Those 2 pass interference penalties I thought were both kind of not good calls. I mean, just because the receiver falls down doesn't necessarily mean it's pass interference. But despite all that, Dwenger was able to overcome it.
As far as unsung heroes, I have to say Jarrett Lee.
Yeah, Jarrett Lee had a great game. Tackling machine.
Yeah, he had 12 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. It felt like he was always around the football. And Gage Renbarger,
Yeah.
Not a name that we talked a lot about during the regular season, but made a big pass breakup in the end zone to help save a touchdown. And then I just felt like he was kind of the guy that helped limit DePriest when we knew here's a guy that had 3 touchdowns of over 50 yards the week before.
Yeah, they really doubled DePriest for most of the game, really had safety help over the top, but Rembarger was phenomenal. Charlie Howe, I mean, in the playoffs really made himself kind of a prime guy, but during the regular season wasn't a guy we talked about a lot. Of course, he has the interception in the 4th overtime to kill that drive for Evansville Central. So we talked all about those linebackers throughout the year. Tippmann, McGarry, Ellinger. It was Charlie Howe was kind of that forgotten guy, but in the postseason, he really came into his own.
And then offensively, I thought Griffin Eifert had 5 catches for 60 yards. We mentioned in the week before in that Mishawaka game, I think he only had 3 catches, but they were huge catches that set up scores. They were huge catches that extended drives. And then obviously had the interception and a 41-yard return that helped set up what could have been, the game-winning field goal at the end for Bishop Dwenger.
Yeah, sure. And I think another guy throughout the year that we really kind of didn't mention, and we talked so much about Joe Tippmann, but Joe Henry up front as well. As big, he's the biggest guy on the line if you take away Joe Tippmann, and then he looks small in comparison. But Henry had a phenomenal year. Was good up front, and it wasn't just Tippmann. All those guys up front really opening holes for the running backs. Whoever running back they put in was able to get yardage. And, of course, T.J. Tippmann obviously playing well. Devin Tippmann kind of missed some time in that game, but throughout the playoff run was the guy. He ran all over Mishawaka that game to the tune of over 150 yards. So a bunch of different guys. It's hard to pinpoint just even 5 or 6 guys on that team.
Yeah, Luke Wigginton, too, up front.
Yeah, he's
a big boy, too.
Yep.
Good on offense, good on defense. He made some nice plays in the defensive backfield in the first half for Bishop Dwenger against Evansville Central. Surprised that Bishop Dwenger came out victorious, or was that kind of what you expected? I mean, it was a hard-fought game, obviously, 0-0 heading into overtime number 2. But what is your overall takeaway, I guess, from Bishop Dwenger's performance on Friday? I
expected a win. I expected more of a lopsided win, to be honest. Once you looked at Evansville Central and saw they're a predominantly running team, Dwenger's strength on defense is taking that away. So I felt Dwenger was going to be able to win this game comfortably. Credit to Evansville Central's defense. And they had a couple guys up front that were really just terrors throughout the game, really bottling up Bishop Dwenger, not allowing them to turn the edge. In fact, the touchdown by T.J. Tippmann is one of the few times you could say Dwenger really was able to seal the edge and turn the corner and get upfield. So Evansville Central defense, I think, deserves a lot of credit for that game being close.
Okay.